Warnings were ignored. Humans proved why no one should underestimate them. The galaxy thought Earth was weak and insignificant, but humans had been preparing in secret for centuries. Their fleets struck with precision, strategies flawless, and technology beyond imagination. Every empire that mocked them learned too late that underestimation was deadly. Humanity had risen unstoppable, clever, and disciplined. Subscribe now to witness the full story of humans conquering the stars. The Galactic Council had always believed themselves to be the supreme rulers of the known universe, their authority unquestioned for centuries. Their chambers were massive, filled with representatives of countless alien species, each more peculiar than the last. Yet, despite the diversity, there was a shared confidence in the Council's wisdom, a sense that nothing in the galaxy could challenge their control. When the topic of humans came up, a wave of dismissive laughter spread across the chamber. They had observed Earth from afar for decades, watched the humans' primitive technology, their small planet barely noticeable in the vast galaxy. To the Council, humans were merely an interesting curiosity, a minor species not worthy of serious attention. Some even joked about them openly, saying that if humans tried to join the galactic community, they would be laughed out of existence. A few voices in the Council tried to offer caution, pointing out ancient records hinting at humanity's resilience and unexpected ingenuity. These voices were few and often ignored, their warnings brushed aside as outdated myths or irrelevant concerns. The majority believed the humans were too weak, too slow, and too disorganized to pose any real threat. Their overconfidence created a dangerous blind spot, one that humans would soon exploit. The Council issued a decree, an official declaration that humans were to be monitored but not interfered with. The decree stated that humans were insignificant, not worth the Council's resources. This decision was celebrated in the chambers, representatives congratulating each other on their wisdom and foresight. They assumed that the humans would remain isolated, contained within their small planet, never advancing enough to challenge galactic order. Meanwhile, the humans went about their lives completely unaware of the Council's judgment. Yet even as the Council laughed, hidden human societies were preparing in silence. Using technology, intelligence, and strategy, they developed capabilities far beyond what the Council had ever imagined. Every observation of humans by the Council only reinforced their arrogance. They saw simplicity and chaos, never suspecting the careful planning that thrived under the surface. The Council's arrogance extended beyond mere observation. They made decisions that would have lasting consequences, setting policies that assumed humans could never rise above their perceived limitations. Colonies and outposts were established near Earth, partly to monitor, partly to assert dominance, but all based on the false assumption that humanity posed no real challenge. The Council's diplomats and spies returned with reports that described humans as predictable and simple-minded, reports that only strengthened the decision to underestimate them. As the decree circulated across the galaxy, other species took notice, agreeing with the Council's assessment. Humans were quietly mocked in scientific reports, in trade meetings, in casual conversations among alien civilizations. No one imagined that the very species everyone dismissed could be quietly building the tools and knowledge to someday upend the entire galaxy. The Council believed that ignoring them was harmless, that underestimating humans carried no risk. Yet, the seeds of future upheaval were being planted. For every dismissive remark in the Council chambers, humans were learning, adapting, and preparing. Every observation, every minor interaction, every slight underestimation became a lesson for humanity. They quietly developed strategies, built technologies, and strengthened their societies with precision. The Council's decree, meant to declare human insignificance, instead unknowingly motivated the species to prove just how dangerous underestimation could be. The Galactic Council celebrated their decree as a mark of wisdom, oblivious to the fact that it marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. What they saw as a harmless decision was actually the spark that would ignite human determination. The Council believed they were untouchable by any species. Yet their arrogance would soon collide with a force they never imagined. A small, underestimated species that had been quietly preparing for centuries was ready to make its mark. And the galaxy would soon learn that no one should ever dismiss humans. Humans, unassuming yet determined, were quietly growing stronger, smarter, and more prepared than anyone suspected. The Council's decree, intended as a statement of dominance, would ultimately be remembered as the moment when the galaxy first underestimated the species that would one day change everything. The laughter and dismissive tone of the council chambers would echo in history, a warning that arrogance and underestimation can have consequences beyond imagination. Humans were aware of the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council, though most of them went about their daily lives unaware of the true magnitude of the galaxy around them. In secret, generations of humans had been preparing for the moment when their strength would be needed. They built hidden cities deep underground, constructed massive research facilities shielded from observation, and developed technology far beyond what any alien race expected. Every invention, every strategy, every experiment was carefully planned in silence. The leaders of these secret programs were not seeking recognition or fame. They understood the importance of patience, of preparation, and of staying unnoticed. Human scientists worked day and night on advanced weapon systems, energy shields, and spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. Engineers and strategists mapped the stars, studied alien technology, and developed plans that could outmaneuver any fleet. Every aspect of human society involved in this effort was coordinated in ways the Council could never detect. Communication between human bases was silent and secure, using methods so advanced that no spy or monitoring system of the Council could intercept. Knowledge passed from generation to generation, each group adding their discoveries and refining strategies. Humans were learning from their mistakes, from history, and from the subtle movements of the galaxy. What appeared on the surface as ordinary life hid a web of intelligence, skill, and preparation that stretched across the planet. Despite their hidden nature, humans tested their technology quietly, conducting simulations of battles, experimenting with energy sources, and creating autonomous fleets that could operate independently. The precision with which these systems were developed showed a level of discipline and intelligence that no alien species had anticipated. They were learning not just to fight, but to think ahead, to anticipate reactions, and to exploit weaknesses without revealing themselves. The humans' ability to adapt was unmatched. Every new observation about the Council's fleets, their strategies, and their weaknesses was analyzed and incorporated into new designs. Even minor victories in simulations were studied in detail, lessons extracted and applied to improve every next step. The collective intelligence of humanity, combined with their relentless curiosity, created a force that was quiet but unstoppable in potential. While the Council celebrated its decree and dismissed humanity as insignificant, humans quietly expanded their capabilities. The underestimation of humans became their greatest advantage, allowing them to develop without interference, without the pressure of observation or competition. They were patient, methodical, and disciplined, knowing that the time for display would come, and when it did, their actions would surprise everyone. Humans also strengthened themselves socially and culturally, understanding that a united population was essential for survival. Education, teamwork, and loyalty were emphasized. Every citizen contributed to the greater effort in some way, from engineering and science to logistics and strategy. This unity created a society capable of executing massive, complex plans with precision, a society that could operate under pressure, adapt to unforeseen challenges, and remain resilient in the face of threats. The secret development of human fleets was particularly impressive. Ships designed with advanced propulsion, stealth capabilities, and energy-based weapons far beyond the Council's expectations were ready for deployment. Autonomous drones, advanced AI systems, and defensive technologies were integrated seamlessly. Humans were creating a balance of offense and defense that made their forces highly unpredictable. As centuries passed, humans grew stronger, smarter, and more prepared. Every step forward was hidden from the Council. Every innovation was a silent testament to their determination. The seemingly insignificant species on a small blue planet was quietly preparing to prove that intelligence, strategy, and perseverance could overcome arrogance and underestimation. By the time the first human fleet was ready to move beyond Earth, the Council still believed that humans were weak, unaware that generations of preparation had created a force capable of challenging the galaxy. The patience, intelligence, and unity of humanity had transformed them into a power no one had predicted, and the galaxy was about to witness a species rise that would forever change the understanding of strength and potential. A council envoy arrived on Earth expecting a simple, obedient species. They landed on a quiet city outskirts, their ships massive and gleaming, a clear sign of power and authority. The humans they encountered appeared ordinary, busy with daily tasks, unaware of the interstellar presence above them. The envoy assumed that their display of advanced technology alone would command respect and submission. Yet the humans greeted them politely, with curiosity and calm, showing no fear or awe. The envoy began their assessment, observing human behavior, technology, and communication. They expected to find confusion, weakness, and ignorance, but what they saw was a complex society capable of organization, innovation, and subtle strategy. Humans communicated efficiently, solved problems quickly, and demonstrated adaptability that surprised the envoy. Yet, despite these signs, the envoy still underestimated them. Believing that no species on a small planet could challenge galactic authority, diplomats from the council tried to extract information, asking about human technology, social structure, and resource management. Humans responded carefully, revealing only what seemed ordinary, sharing nothing of their secret preparations. Their answers were clever, measured, and filled with subtle truths that the envoy misinterpreted as simplicity or lack of sophistication. Every observation made by the envoy only reinforced the council's arrogance, as they misread intelligence for naivety. The humans' outward normalcy was a shield, a deliberate tactic. They allowed the envoy to believe they were harmless, while internally, their leaders coordinated with hidden bases, preparing for the future. Scientists, strategists, and engineers quietly monitored the envoy's actions, taking notes on technology, communication methods, and potential weaknesses in the council's approach. The humans were learning without revealing anything, turning observation into preparation. The envoy reported back to the council, describing humans as curious but ultimately simple-minded. They noted human adaptability in small tasks, but dismissed it as minor cleverness rather than a sign of true intelligence. The council accepted these reports eagerly, reinforcing their belief that humans were not a threat. They laughed over the envoy's findings, confident that monitoring and occasional guidance would be sufficient to control the species. Meanwhile, humans continued to study the envoy, understanding their expectations and assumptions. They noticed the overconfidence in every action, the arrogance in every word, and they saw the patterns that the council believed were invisible. These insights were immediately shared with hidden human bases, forming the foundation for strategies that would one day exploit these very weaknesses. Every detail, no matter how small, became part of a growing map of knowledge about interstellar power dynamics. Humans also observed the envoy's technology, noting both strengths and limitations. They recognized the potential of energy weapons, shield systems, and faster-than-light travel, but also identified vulnerabilities in coordination, over-reliance on assumed superiority, and predictability in their tactics. Engineers and tacticians immediately began devising countermeasures, simulations, and alternative strategies that would later allow humans to strike precisely where the council never expected. As the envoy departed, satisfied with their superficial assessment, the humans quietly prepared for the day when the galaxy's arrogance would collide with reality. No one on the council suspected that the polite, calm, and seemingly ordinary humans had already begun designing systems capable of undermining the envoy's authority. Their patience, discipline, and intelligence had turned observation into preparation and underestimation into a fatal mistake. The envoy left Earth with reports full of assumptions, misjudgments, and false confidence, believing that humans could be managed with minimal effort. They could not imagine that the species they had labeled insignificant was silently growing in skill, technology, and strategy. The Council's underestimation was complete, and humanity's hidden preparations ensured that the first contact would ultimately be remembered as the moment arrogance met intelligence. Humans had turned ordinary appearances into a perfect disguise for extraordinary capability. Their polite interactions, careful communication, and subtle deception had created a situation where the envoy believed the species harmless, while humanity continued to grow stronger, smarter, and more capable behind the scenes. The envoy's visit, meant to measure and control, instead became a lesson in the dangers of judging by appearances. By the time the Council realized the true nature of humans, it would be too late. What seemed like curiosity and simplicity was in fact a carefully cultivated facade, hiding decades of preparation, strategy, and technological advancement. Humanity's patience and intelligence had transformed the first contact from an expected formality into a moment that would eventually change the galaxy forever. The species that had been underestimated was ready, and the envoy had unknowingly witnessed the calm before the storm. Some members of the Galactic Council remembered old stories about humanity, tales of resilience, ingenuity, and survival against impossible odds. They warned their peers that humans might be more capable than they appeared. Yet these voices were few and often dismissed as overly cautious or sentimental. The majority of the Council continued to laugh at the idea, confident that a species from a small, seemingly chaotic planet could never rise to challenge the galactic order. Advisories and warnings from these cautious council members were ignored, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and arrogance. The council assumed that monitoring humans was sufficient, that interference was unnecessary, and that the species would remain contained by their limited technology and resources. No one paused to consider that humans had centuries of secret preparation, intelligence gathering, and strategic planning underway. Meanwhile, humans observed every movement of the council with careful attention, learning not just from their own experiences, but also from the missteps, weaknesses, and patterns of interstellar authorities. Analysts in hidden human bases studied council fleets, communication methods, and decision-making processes. Not a single observation was wasted. Each became part of a growing understanding of how to counter the galaxy's most powerful forces. Humans learned to anticipate moves before they happened, predicting the Council's reactions to different scenarios. Scientists and strategists collaborated across secret facilities, using simulations and experiments to test responses and refine plans. Technology was designed with precision, capable of striking where the Council would be most vulnerable, while remaining invisible and undetectable until the right moment. The Council, in contrast, grew complacent, believing their decrees and assumptions were enough to maintain control. Every policy, every patrol, every fleet deployment was made under the assumption that humans were weak, predictable, and harmless. Their arrogance blinded them to the quiet growth of a species that was preparing to overturn their expectations. Their failure to take warnings seriously would soon become their greatest vulnerability. Even minor miscalculations by Council fleets were noted by humans, recorded, and used to improve strategies. What the Council thought were insignificant mistakes were lessons for humanity, turning every Council error into a blueprint for future success. Hidden observatories and tracking systems on Earth monitored movements across the galaxy, analyzing patterns, weaknesses, and inconsistencies. Humans were learning faster than anyone suspected, turning underestimation into a tactical advantage. As the Council debated whether humans were a true threat, they failed to notice that the species they dismissed had already begun constructing fleets capable of interstellar operations. Weapon systems were tested in secret, energy shields perfected, and artificial intelligence integrated into strategies that allowed autonomous decision-making in combat. Humans were not only preparing to defend themselves, they were preparing to strike with precision, timing, and intelligence far beyond the Council's imagination. The more the Council ignored warnings, the stronger humans became. Their patience was a weapon, allowing them to develop technologies and strategies without interference. While the Council remained confident in their superiority, humans quietly built networks of information, training, and resources that would soon allow them to dominate when the time was right. Every step forward was deliberate, calculated, and hidden from the galaxy. Humans also learned the psychology of the Council, studying arrogance, assumptions, and behavior patterns. They recognized that overconfidence often led to mistakes, that dismissiveness could be exploited, and that the Council's belief in their own superiority could be turned against them. Sociologists, strategists, and engineers worked together to turn every Council blind spot into a potential advantage. preparing not just for battle, but for a campaign of strategy that would redefine galactic expectations. By the time the Council realized the seriousness of the human threat, the species would already have mastered every aspect of preparation, strategy, and technology. What began as a small, seemingly insignificant species on a minor planet had grown into a force capable of challenging the mightiest powers in the galaxy. The ignored warnings had been recorded, studied, and used to fuel a future where humans would no longer be underestimated. Humanity's patience, intelligence, and discipline created a situation where arrogance and oversight could no longer protect the Council. Their silence and preparation turned every assumption made by the galaxy into a trap. Every dismissed caution became a stepping stone toward dominance. The species that was underestimated had become a silent storm, ready to rise and show the Council and the galaxy why ignoring humans was a mistake that no one would ever forget. Humans, quiet but relentless, continued their preparation. Each step forward, bringing them closer to the day when the galaxy would witness their power. Every ignored warning, every dismissed observation, and every underestimated move became part of a growing legacy, one that would forever prove that intelligence, strategy, and patience can turn even the smallest, most underestimated species into an unstoppable force. Humans had waited patiently for centuries, perfecting their plans, refining their technology, and studying every weakness in the Galactic Council's defenses. When the moment arrived, their fleets emerged from hidden sectors of space, moving with precision and coordination that no one in the galaxy had anticipated. Ships that had been invisible to even the most advanced sensors now appeared, a sudden and unstoppable force ready to strike. The first targets were key Council outposts and supply stations, chosen not for destruction alone, but for the psychological shock they would deliver. Human weapons struck with unparalleled accuracy, disabling fleets before they could respond. Energy shields, tested and perfected in secrecy, absorbed counterattacks while human ships delivered decisive blows. The Council fleets, arrogant and unprepared, struggled to understand what was happening, disbelief spreading among their ranks. On the Council's homeworld, alarms blared, and diplomats rushed to control the situation. But humans had anticipated their every move. Each countermeasure the Council attempted had already been studied, analyzed, and neutralized in advance. Human strategy was not chaotic. It was calculated, precise, and relentless, turning what could have been confusion into total dominance. The aliens had mocked humans for their primitive technology and small numbers, yet they were powerless against fleets designed with advanced propulsion, stealth systems, and energy weapons beyond anything they had expected. Human engineers had predicted weaknesses in alien shield systems, fleet formations, and command protocols, exploiting them in ways that caused panic and forced councils to retreat, regroup, and reconsider their assumptions. Surprise attacks struck at communication hubs, cutting off council leaders from their fleets. Drones and autonomous ships worked flawlessly, coordinating attacks faster than any alien command structure could react. The humans' ability to adapt in real time, using AI-assisted decision-making, overwhelmed the council's forces, and morale plummeted. Those who had once dismissed humans now faced a species they could no longer ignore. Civilizations that had once laughed at humanity watched in awe as entire colonies fell under precision strikes. Empires that relied on fear and intimidation discovered that their weapons, tactics, and overconfidence were no match for the quiet, disciplined, and determined humans. The galaxy began to realize that underestimating humans had been a fatal mistake, one that could no longer be reversed. Human pilots and strategists executed maneuvers with seamless coordination. Every movement calculated to avoid unnecessary loss while maximizing impact. Council ships were immobilized, weapon systems disabled, and entire fleets neutralized without warning. The humans' ability to strike anywhere, at any time, left the Council scrambling, unable to predict the next move. Their arrogance had been their undoing. On Earth, hidden command centers monitored every attack. Every victory and every Council misstep recorded and analyzed for further improvement. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked in perfect synchronization, ensuring that no opportunity was wasted. Every human action, though seemingly spontaneous, was part of a grand design that had been centuries in the making. Despite the chaos among Council ranks, humans remained disciplined, avoiding unnecessary destruction, minimizing casualties where possible, and maintaining strategic control. Their actions sent a clear message. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated, not a primitive planet-bound race, but a force capable of challenging the most powerful entities in the galaxy. The first strike was not just a battle. It was a demonstration, a warning, and a declaration all at once. The Council, which had assumed dominance and simplicity, now faced the reality that humans were organized, intelligent, and unstoppable when prepared. Every report, every observation, and every underestimated action had led to this moment, and the galaxy would never view Earth the same way again. As fleets withdrew to regroup, Council leaders realized the full extent of their miscalculation. Their arrogance had left them vulnerable, and the humans had exploited it with precision and intelligence. The shockwaves of this first strike spread throughout the galaxy, leaving civilizations to rethink their own assumptions about strength, strategy, and underestimation. Humans had proven their patience, intelligence, and preparedness, turning centuries of silent planning into a decisive and overwhelming first strike. The Council would never forget the day they had dismissed a species from a small blue planet, and humanity had shown that even the seemingly weakest can rise to challenge the strongest. The first strike was only the beginning, a promise that humans had come to stay and dominate. Human fleets moved through space with unmatched precision, every maneuver calculated, every strike anticipated. They no longer relied on surprise alone, but on strategy, intelligence, and flawless coordination. Council fleets that had once dominated smaller species now found themselves outmatched and outthought. Every attack by humans seemed to anticipate a counterattack before it could even be launched, leaving alien forces confused and disoriented. The humans' tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen, combining speed, adaptability, and technology in ways that made prediction impossible. Ships moved in perfect formations, energy weapons striking simultaneously at multiple points, shields absorbing incoming fire while countermeasures disabled enemy systems. Alien commanders struggled to respond, unable to understand how a species they dismissed as weak could act with such intelligence and precision. Humans had also mastered communication and coordination across vast distances. Using advanced AI networks and encrypted systems, their fleets operated as a single, cohesive entity. Every unit knew its role, adjusted to changes in real time, and acted without hesitation. Council forces, used to fragmented commands and delayed responses, could not match this level of synchronization, giving humans a decisive advantage in every engagement. Civilizations that once ridiculed humans now watched in awe as the insignificant species systematically dismantled fleets, captured outposts, and disrupted supply lines. Entire sectors that had been considered safe under Council protection fell to human forces. The speed, intelligence, and adaptability displayed by humans changed perceptions instantly. Every victory reinforced the message that humanity could not be underestimated. The humans also used psychological strategy to their advantage, anticipating fear, hesitation, and arrogance in Council officers. They exploited overconfidence, turning alien assumptions into traps. Every predicted reaction became a tool. Every underestimated move became a weapon. Humans were not just fighting with ships and weapons, they were fighting with strategy, intelligence, and understanding of their enemy. Meanwhile, human engineers and strategists continued to improve tactics in real time. Data from battles was immediately analyzed and fed back into simulations. Ships and fleets were upgraded, weaknesses corrected, and new strategies implemented without pause. Every engagement became a learning opportunity, turning even minor skirmishes into steps toward complete dominance. The adaptability of humans ensured that no Council tactic could ever remain effective for long. The Council tried to regroup, calling for reinforcements, forming alliances, and redesigning fleets. But humans anticipated these moves, intercepting communications, exploiting gaps in planning, and striking critical points before new strategies could take effect. Council morale faltered as leaders realized that every step they took was already predicted, and every reaction had been accounted for by human strategists. In addition to military precision, humans also protected civilian sectors, maintaining discipline and minimizing unnecessary destruction. Their actions demonstrated a combination of intelligence, morality, and strategy that further distinguished them from other species. Humans were showing the galaxy that true strength was not only about power, but also about foresight, preparation, and the ability to act with both efficiency and purpose. The combination of technological superiority, strategic planning, and psychological insight made humans an unstoppable force. Even the most experienced alien commanders struggled to understand how such a young species could operate at this level. Every victory by humans reinforced the Council's growing fear. The species they had mocked and dismissed was now the standard by which intelligence, strategy, and power were measured. As humans moved from sector to sector, they displayed not only military skill, but also unity and adaptability. Their fleets could split, regroup, or execute complex maneuvers without confusion. Every action supported a larger plan, creating a domino effect that left Council forces constantly reacting rather than acting. The galaxy watched in awe as humans turned every advantage the Council had assumed into a weakness. By the end of these campaigns, it became clear that humans were not just a force of retaliation. They were a force of dominance. Their intelligence, preparation, and coordination had changed the balance of power. The Council, once confident and dismissive, now understood that underestimating humanity had been a catastrophic mistake. Every move of humans displayed the culmination of centuries of preparation, patience, and careful strategy. Humanity had risen not through sheer numbers or raw strength alone, but through intelligence, precision, and the ability to anticipate, adapt, and execute flawlessly. The galaxy, once dismissive and arrogant, had no choice but to recognize humans as an unstoppable and strategic power. Every victory, every maneuver, and every decision cemented the reputation of a species that no one could ever underestimate again. The Galactic Council, stunned and humiliated by the speed and precision of the human strikes, scrambled to regain control. Leaders who had once laughed at Earth now faced the terrifying reality of a species they had underestimated for centuries. Desperate, they called for negotiations, hoping to find a way to stop the relentless human advance without losing complete authority. When human envoys arrived to discuss terms, it was clear they were not there to plead or beg. Their demands were firm, focused on accountability and recognition of their strength. Diplomats who had assumed humans would submit were shocked by the confidence, intelligence, and strategic awareness displayed. Humanity was no longer a subject to be dismissed. They were a force demanding respect, and their patience had paid off. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched these interactions closely. Many who had once ridiculed humans now began reconsidering their alliances and strategies. The realization spread quickly. The underestimated species from Earth had transformed into a formidable power, capable of reshaping galactic politics and challenging centuries-old hierarchies. Every Council attempt to reassert dominance was met with calculated resistance, further proving humanity's intelligence and discipline. The Council's leaders, forced into a defensive position, recognized the cost of their arrogance. Their fleets had been crippled, colonies lost, and reputation shattered. Every miscalculation, every assumption that humans were weak, now stood as a glaring error. The empire they had relied upon for centuries could not withstand the precision, strategy, and foresight humans had demonstrated. Even as humans maintained their strength, they showed restraint, avoiding unnecessary destruction of civilian populations and strategic locations. Their approach was not one of chaos or mindless conquest, but of intelligent dominance. Sending a clear message: humans were fair, disciplined, and strategic, capable of punishing arrogance while still showing mercy. Council allies who had once doubted humans now sought their favor, recognizing that survival and future prosperity required respect and collaboration. The power dynamics of the galaxy began to shift. Slowly, cautiously, civilizations started to treat humans not as a primitive species, but as equals or even as leaders in strategic matters. Humanity's rise was rewriting what it meant to be strong in the galaxy. Human intelligence and strategy extended beyond the battlefield. Every negotiation, every demand, and every move was backed by centuries of preparation and understanding of interstellar politics. They did not seek revenge for mockery or underestimation. They sought recognition, stability, and the ability to ensure the galaxy would no longer ignore or dismiss them. Every action reinforced the lesson that arrogance and underestimation carried severe consequences. Council leaders tried to salvage what they could, forming temporary agreements and offering concessions. Yet humans remained firm, demonstrating that while they could destroy fleets and colonies, their ultimate goal was not chaos, but calculated authority and respect. The message was clear. Any attempt to belittle or underestimate humans would be met with consequences beyond expectation. The Council realized, painfully, that the balance of power had shifted. Their arrogance and dismissiveness had been exploited perfectly. Every assumption about human weakness had been proven wrong. Every underestimated capability had been turned into a tool for dominance. Now, forced to negotiate from a position of weakness, they could only watch as humans set the new rules. Across the galaxy, stories spread of Earth's disciplined and intelligent species. Once dismissed as primitive and unimportant, humans had demonstrated that patience, preparation, and strategic thinking could overturn centuries of power. Civilizations that had mocked them reconsidered alliances, tactics, and the very way they measured strength. Humans had proven not just military superiority, but also intellectual and moral dominance. Their rise was methodical, precise, and unstoppable. Every victory on the battlefield, every careful negotiation, and every restrained action demonstrated a species that combined intelligence, foresight, and discipline. The Galactic Council had learned a harsh lesson, one that would remain in galactic memory for generations. Underestimating humans was a mistake with consequences beyond imagination. Humanity had not only reclaimed respect, but had also rewritten the rules of power. Leadership in the galaxy would never again ignore the small blue planet whose people had risen to prove that intelligence, strategy, and preparation could conquer arrogance. Humans had risen from a species once dismissed as insignificant to a force that commanded respect and fear across the galaxy. Their fleets patrolled sectors that had once been considered safe under the Council's control. Every civilization began to understand that the small blue planet was now the center of a new era. The galaxy watched as humans demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and discipline far beyond anything previously imagined. Empires that had mocked or ignored humanity scrambled to adapt, forming alliances, negotiating treaties, and seeking guidance. They realized that underestimating humans was no longer an option. Every plan, every assumption, every prediction had to take into account the capabilities of a species that had quietly prepared for centuries. Humans had shown that preparation, patience, and unity could turn even the most underestimated species into a dominant power. The Galactic Council, humbled and cautious, recognized the shift in authority. Their arrogance had been their undoing, and now they had to navigate a galaxy where humans set the rules. Even those who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant now approached humans with respect and caution. The power balance of the galaxy had changed, and humans were at the center of it, leading with intelligence, foresight, and calculated strength. Humans continued to expand their presence, not through reckless conquest, but through strategic influence. Their fleets, technologies, and diplomatic skills combined to establish a position of dominance. Every action sent a clear message. The species that had been underestimated would no longer be ignored. Their rise was a demonstration that intelligence, preparation, and unity could overcome arrogance, ignorance, and power. Civilizations that had once ridiculed humans now studied them carefully, attempting to learn from their strategy. Their fleets observed human movements, their diplomats attended human-led negotiations, and their scientists sought to understand human technology. The galaxy was learning that the underestimated species from Earth had become the benchmark for planning, coordination, and resilience. Humans also maintained a moral code, showing that strength was not only about destruction or fear, but also about responsibility, discipline, and strategy. They avoided unnecessary conflicts, focused on calculated actions, and ensured that their rise did not destroy the potential for future alliances. Their reputation grew not only as a powerful species, but also as a fair and intelligent one, capable of both strategy and ethics. Legends of Earth's rise spread rapidly. Stories of fleets appearing from nowhere, strategies that predicted enemy moves, and a species that had turned centuries of preparation into unstoppable dominance. These stories became lessons for every civilization in the galaxy. Warnings about arrogance, underestimation, and the danger of dismissing intelligence traveled faster than any fleet, and humans became both respected and feared. The Council attempted to rebuild trust and authority, but they knew the era of unquestioned dominance was over. Humans had rewritten the rules, showing that power was not just about size or technology, but about preparation, intelligence, and unity. Their rise had proven that the smallest, most underestimated species could redefine the galaxy's understanding of strength, strategy, and influence. Every human action now carried weight across star systems. Their decisions shaped alliances, trade, defense, and diplomacy. The galaxy understood that underestimating humans would be a fatal mistake, and that respect, careful observation, and strategy were essential for survival. Humanity had transformed from an overlooked species to a central power whose influence could not be ignored. Generations that had lived quietly in preparation now saw their vision realized. Humans had turned patience, intelligence, and discipline into an unstoppable force. Their rise was not just military or technological, it was cultural, strategic, and moral. Every civilization was learning that true power came from careful planning, foresight, and the ability to act decisively when the time was right. The forgotten, underestimated species from a small blue planet had proven that no matter how insignificant a civilization seemed, determination, intelligence, and strategy could change the course of history. Humans had not only survived, they had risen to a level that demanded respect and altered the galaxy forever. Their legacy would be remembered as the species that transformed underestimation into unstoppable dominance. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Ignoring humans was a mistake beyond imagination. A species once overlooked had become a symbol of intelligence, unity, and strength, reshaping every expectation about what was possible. Humans now led with precision, strategy, and foresight, proving that patience, preparation, and determination could make even the smallest species the most powerful force in the galaxy.